Welcome back to the Black Swan Basketball Podcast presented by the Gherkin Companies. For Strack and Dave Krause, we have some special guests here with us. Dick and Tim Selgo. Guys, thanks so much for joining us. I am Willie Raw. We'll have our teams of the week at the end of this episode. So let's give you guys some time to think about that.
Well, I'm going to defer everything to this guy.
To the expert?
He's the guru. And so I'm just going to stay in my lane on that.
Fine with me.
It's a little different without the headsets here tonight.
Yep. Trying something new.
Yeah, I like it.
I was hoping my ears would stay warm.
A little more natural.
This is off the basketball subject, since you bring it up. Sorry, I just talked. The last time I saw him was in Pasadena, California at the Rose Bowl, and it was 100 degrees warmer than it is today.
It was just about 150 heat in.
Yes, it was Bowling Green. It wasn't the Rose Bowl game. It was Bowling Green playing at UCLA in the Rose Bowl.
Yep.
And I mean, we were sweltering. Wondering how they're even going to play this game.
I know.
It was so hot. They played it.
They played it, and you think about those 300-pound linemen, you know, in full gear, and we barely survived it. Coach Selgo, let
That's a
alone those
fan,
guys.
yeah.
Yeah.
I had to go up. There was one section that had some trees way up at the top, a little bit of shade, and everybody kind of tried to squeeze in there. That's where I went.
Let's see. Well, there was a list out there, right, of the top players from every county that we have looked at.
Yeah, that was probably the origin of getting these two guys on tonight's show, simply because, and this is Northwest Ohio Sports. I still don't know who this gentleman is or
I don't know
lady,
either.
whoever he or she may be, but he or she did a lot of work and put all those teams together, did a lot of homework. They just didn't take the last 10 years or so. They went back and got some dandies.
That's
And
pretty
we're-
hard getting it down to 5.
Yeah, and that's flip over coins. We can
Yeah.
talk about maybe why
Yeah.
you shouldn't be on there or why Jimmy should be on and why
Jimmy-
you are.
Or Jimmy played those a 2-family maximum on the team because there were 2 Lamans and 2 Selgos. So he said there must be a 2-family maximum.
We're talking about brother Jim. We got obviously Tim and Dick, and Jim lives out in Phoenix and he's enjoying nice weather, so heck with him.
Right off the jump here is your brothers kind of spread their wings and flew elsewhere, and you nestled in close to home here.
I wouldn't trade growing up Pettisville and playing basketball and baseball there for anything in the world. And as I got going into my teaching career and everything, and started with a family, I wanted to get back to those kind of roots. And Archibald was the next closest thing, and one that afforded me an opportunity to work with coach, teach and coach there. That's been wonderful.
Tim, I mean, are you pretty happy with your journey? I mean, you've been a few places and seen some things. Do you envy Brother Dick sometimes, his simple life here?
Well, I can't be more thankful for the career I've had and for where it's taking me. You know, although it's a lot snowier here in West Michigan, Grand Rapids, Michigan, than it is there right now, I guarantee you that still hasn't stopped. Seems like the last 2 weeks. But, you know, I echo Dick's thoughts. I never regretted growing up in Pettisville, Ohio. What a terrific place to grow up as a kid. And, you know, we had our dad as our coach growing up, and it was just a wonderful life there. And then, you know, I was the smartest Selgo of the bunch and went to the University of Toledo, whereas my 2 older brothers couldn't get in, so they had to go to Bowling Green. But I played for a guy there by the name of I played for a guy there by the name of Bob Nichols, who was the winningest coach in the history of the Mid-American Conference in men's basketball to this day. Coach Nichols retired in 1986. He passed away in 2011. He's still the winningest coach in history of Mid-American Conference in men's basketball. And I'm very thankful that I had the opportunity to not only play for him, but I coached with him. You know, I spent some time in the car on recruiting trips and was able to pick his brain for a lot of his wisdom. And it led me into a career of coaching and then administration. And I was very fortunate Grand Valley State University hired me to be their director of athletics. That was my goal professionally, to be a director of athletics and at a school that I thought could have success and in a place where I felt was great to raise our family. and we hit the jackpot. I couldn't ask for anything more. We've lived here now 30 years in Grand Rapids, Michigan. We love it, and it couldn't have been a better journey for me. But again, our roots are in Pettisville, Ohio, and that's why I'm wearing this with you guys today. We celebrated our 50th anniversary of our high school state runner-up team in 1976 about 3 weeks ago when Peeville played Fairview, and it couldn't have been more fun, and what a wonderful evening.
Tim, 19 national championships under your watch at Grand Valley, is that right?
I think that's about right. Yeah, we had a good run, and we had quite a few in quite a few sports. So it was a lot of fun. You know, it wasn't easy the first 5 years or so. We were trudging uphill, and then Brian Kelly was our head football coach, and he broke through with our first national championship, leading our football team in 2002. And from there, everybody knew and believed we could do this, and we could be a part of the national scene. And then it spread. Then we won in other sports, and it's just continued on. We have a great school, Grand Valley State University. David, you've been there. Your son played there. And when you have a great school with great people, you can do a lot of things. And I was very, very fortunate. You know, just like my high school basketball team in Pettisville, Ohio. You know, I mentioned that team in 1976. We had 9 seniors on that team, and they all could play. And there were some guys on that team that would have started a lot of other schools. So I was very fortunate to be surrounded by a class at a small school like Pettisville, 52 graduates that had that much talent in it, and that allowed us to do great things there. And likewise at Grand Valley, I was around a lot of great people, and certainly at the University of Toledo. So I've been fortunate my whole life to be able to be around some great people, and they've helped me have a lot of fun along the way in athletics.
Hey, going back to the Toledo Bowling Green thing, of course, Bowling Green, Toledo, and I always wanted to beat them and everything else. I graduated from Bowling Green, and then he started at Toledo, and he's a freshman at Toledo. Their first game, the opening game at Centennial Hall, which is now called Savage Arena, is against the defending national champs, Indiana, Bobby Knight, Kent Benson, and Toledo. And I was at the game. I mean, that place was packed. And he got the seats right up in the corner. Okay, he was a freshman, and
Of course, you had your orange on.
maybe that's true, but we didn't think he didn't get the game. And sure enough, he's the first guy off the bench going in the game, and that was such a fantastic game. Toledo beat him 59-57, and I became a Rocket fan real quick for the next 4 years anyway, and then that went away.
I want to rewind a second. You guys both spoke glowingly about growing up in Pettisville, Ohio. Talk about what made Pettisville special.
Well, you know, for me, you just think of the wonderful memories, you know, and we're all of that baby boomer generation where you get on your bike and you go hang out with your friends all day, and you just had to be home at 5:30 at supper time. That's when Mom had supper on the table, and you could do whatever you want. I remember going anywhere, and you know, we didn't have cell phones in those days where your parents can track you on your cell phone and know where you're at. They didn't know where we were at. We just had a great group of guys again that hung out together from, you know, early elementary education on. We were playing basketball, we were playing sandlot football, we were having wiffle ball games, and we did all that stuff, and it was so much fun. But Pettisville has such a tight-knit community, you know, in a small town, and as you all know, everybody knows everybody. And, you know, that, you know, just goes back to values we learned at that age. And we have some great people there too. You know, we were talking about this at our 50th anniversary of our basketball team. What a great group of teachers we had at Pettisville High School at that time. I mean, we had some fantastic teachers. Steve Brannon, our math teacher. We had teachers in all of our other subjects. I look back and we were extremely well prepared to go to college. And I was a teammate and classmate in college of a bunch of guys from big private schools in cities and larger schools. And I thought, goodness gracious, I'm better prepared for college than these guys. And maybe that's because the classroom size was smaller and whatnot. But just a great place that I never regret. Always enjoy going back and brings back wonderful memories.
Athletically, you talk about academically, athletically, we were all, he and I and brother Jim were just blessed to be at such a small school and have such good teammates. We were all having good teammates in baseball and basketball at that time. And you can get in a situation in a small school where you got one good player, nobody else can do anything. We didn't have that. We had good teammates that made it fun.
Who were some of those teammates, Coach?
Well, my sophomore year, our franchise was Charlie Nossick. 6'3", big, strong farm boy that he carried the load for us and made my life easy as a sophomore.
And he became a coach later on at Pettisville.
Yep, yeah.
That was my very first game on the stage, was against Pettisville, and Charlie Knopson were bringing it over. That was my very first game.
Yeah, so everybody was focusing their defense on Charlie. Well, he scored a lot, but he'd also kick it out to me, and I was wide open. It was like shooting foul shots, man. I loved it. It was a great way to get into varsity basketball. And then I'll never forget, we played at Hicksville. He scored our first 18 points of the game. First 18. And then he went on at Defiance College, had a tremendous career at Defiance College, and they were good at the time. And went to the NAIA National Tournament in Kansas City twice and had a great career there. And then he got into coaching and coached it. He started at Bryan as a JV coach, and then he ended up at Pettisville shortly after that for a long tenure there. But yeah, he was certainly one as a sophomore, and then as a junior year. Well, we also had a number. His cousin came out his senior year. He was 6'2", 6'3", and had never played, and was able to come out his senior year. Leroy Nossinger, and we had Neil Roop, another guard. We had Jim Rivenow, who lives in Archibald now. Marlon Gehrig. And then my junior year, just really, we had 6'1". Kurt Weber was our tallest guy, and we went to the regionals. Got beat by Bluffton with the Simon twins. They were each, about 6'3", each 6'3", and then they had a 6'5" guy too, and that hurt us. But then my senior year, Rich Siler came out of nowhere off the JV teams, a little lefty, and he could shoot, and so that took some of the heat off, and it was just.
How far did you get your senior year?
We got beat in just one of the best, biggest games ever at the Grand Canyon. Ayersville. The guards in that game. Dave Klein for Ayersville, Rick Baldwin, myself, and Rich Siler combined for over 100 points. That game. I mean, it was up and down, and it was a fun game, but they end up winning by a point.
I was gonna bring that game up, but I'm glad we got it.
You know
out
who
early.
wrote about that game? And I think you guys can help me with this name. He was a writer for the Defiance Crescent. Pretty big guy. He died at
Jack Palmer.
That's the guy, Jack Palmer. Jack wrote a lot of articles. He wrote a really nice article about that game being one of the best he had ever seen.
Well, Rick's told me a lot about that game because I know Rick's son really well. He's a good friend.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's discussed that
Oh,
with me
boy.
quite a bit. Yeah.
That was a sectional, or that was a district semifinal, I think.
Tim, do you remember that game he's talking about?
I sure do. I was in the 7th grade. I kept the shot chart for my dad. And the shot chart had a lot of circles around the number in those days, you know. These guys were lighting it up, man. Baldwin and Dick, Rich Siler. It was really a great game to watch because they were all guards. So there wasn't a whole lot of throwing the ball inside, man. It was they were cutting it loose and making them. It was a terrific game.
But we can talk about that for the whole show probably, but let's backtrack even further. I mean, correct us, give me some background where your dad was from Port Clinton out by the lake somewhere.
Yeah.
What brought the Selgos to Pettisville?
It's a great story. Dad played college basketball at Ball Wallace. They beat Bowling Green. They played Toledo tough and played a big time schedule back then. Duquesne, CCNY, they were big. Seton Hall, they were big in the East back then. Anyway, he graduates and becomes the head basketball coach at Port Clinton, where he played. So his first year as basketball coach, they win their first game and they lose the rest. They lose the rest. He kicks 2 kids off the team, with both board members, so for violation of team rules. And so he's gone. Instant fun. He's gone after 1 year. And let me stay on that for a minute. The hilarious part of this is he kicked these kids off for smoking. Right? Go another 50 years into the future. My mom retired out in Arizona. And my dad liked to go to the horse races a little bit. Okay? Imagine that. And they didn't have everything on the computer, so if he didn't go to Turf Paradise, he'd go to off-track betting. They had a smoking section and a non-smoking section, so he'd always go to the non-smoking section. He's in there and starts talking to some guy that's placing bets. Finds out it's one of the kids he kicked off the team in Fort Clinton for smoking. Now he's in the non-smoking section. So maybe he learned a lesson. But how's that happen? That was hilarious. So then he was dismayed by coaching at that point, and he went into the bowling business with his father, who had a bowling alley in Fort Clinton. And then we ended up moving to Arizona. My dad went into the bowling supply business in Arizona. That didn't work out. He got a call from Denzel Miller. Denzel was a roommate of his and a teammate at Wallace College. And Denzel at that time was the head basketball coach in Pettisville. And he tried to talk to him, said, we got an opening. I need an assistant. We need a head baseball coach. We need a history teacher. And my dad said, I don't know. I didn't have real good experience. Denzel said, this is different here. He said, this is different at Pettisville, Northwest Ohio. And so we moved back across country and things went tremendous at Pettisville.
What a story. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, you can lead that a lot of ways. I mean, you can talk about, you've already mentioned the bowling, how crucial that is to your family. We're talking all of you bowl. Mom, Dad, obviously, you 3 guys still bowl. You talk about yearly. Talk about the bowling and how that was a family contagious thing.
Well, I tell people all the time that our grandfather owned a bowling alley. Our dad worked in the bowling business and was just a tremendous bowler. I mean, my dad won the USBC doubles national championship. I think it was 1970. That's a big deal. That's throughout the country, and bowling was in its heyday then. And of course, bowled in the Toledo Classic. He and Mom both bowled in the Traveling Classic in Toledo all those years. He was teaching, coaching basketball, and was one of the best bowlers in Northwest Ohio. And once in a while, we go over to practice bowling a couple of times. I think now, I don't know how he did all that. Actually, he owned 2 bowling lanes during the time he was teaching and coaching at Pettisville. For a year, he owned the Archibald lanes, and for 1 year, he owned the Hayes Bowling Center in Napoleon there, right across from the municipal golf course for at least a year, I believe, Dick, didn't he? And I imagine he was teaching, coaching, owned this bowling alley. I don't know how he found the time to do that, but he loved the game, passed it on to us. I can remember as a kid him continually saying, this is a lifelong sport. You can play it the rest of your life. You're not going to be able to play basketball or baseball the rest of your life. Of course, we were kids at the time, and then we were focused on that. We were sports junkies, and I bowled up into the 8th grade. I bowled in a Saturday morning league at the Hayes Center there in Napoleon up until the 8th grade. Then I got in high school and was dedicated to basketball and becoming really good at that. And so I gave up bowling. At age 45, I was in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and it was late August. One of my good friends here called me. He knew about my bowling background. He knew about our family and said, hey, we've got an opening on our bowling team. You want to bowl with us? And I thought, when do you bowl? And he said, Wednesdays at 6:00. And I thought, well, that Wednesdays are really the only night we don't have games at Grand Valley. And I asked my wife, Terry, and she says, oh, yeah, you need a release from this athletic director thing. I'd been there about 8 years and working my tail off. So I started bowling again at age 45, which was now 22 years ago, and have had a blast bowling. Dick and Jim and I and the guys, including your brother once in a while, Dave, we go to the USBC tournament every year. And we never bowl real well because it's tough conditions, but we have a lot of fun. And I've just had a blast bowling. I now bowl once a week. Monday mornings, I'm in a Monday morning league. And at my age, I'm one of the younger ones in the league, I think. But I have a blast, and we have a good group of guys. And it all comes back to my dad was right. It's a lifelong sport, like golf, like, tennis, pickleball, whatever you want to do. You can play it your whole life. And I find the competition, it helps my competitive juices out a little bit. I get that fix, if you will, but also have a lot of fun hanging with the guys.
High school seniors, uncertain that college is right for you? Concerned about the cost of higher education? At the Gherkin Companies, we offer rewarding livelihoods even without a degree. That's a good living straight out of high school with no tuition debt. Starting pay between recent college grads and those with high school diplomas is closer than you might think. So if you enjoy teamwork, working outdoors, and being part of something meaningful, consider your options at gherkincompanies.com/careers.
American Freedom Energy and Grandma's General Store off Route 24 on State Route 109, just south of Liberty Center, now has 88 unleaded fuel and is your one-stop shop for fuel, food, drinks, and much, much more, including locally raised meats and home-baked goods. American Freedom Energy and Grandma's General Store is proud to support Black Swamp Football and is the host of the Black Swamp Football podcast, football show, and Saturday mornings Rise and Rewind. Stop in and see Glenn and Greg today and make American Freedom Energy and Grandma's General Store a part of your everyday routine.
10?
Jeez.
10.
I got
You, Tim?
I've had 3. Dick's definitely the best bowler of us all. Jim and I are about the same. We each bowl about once a week, and we go out to the USBC and we struggle and complain about the conditions.
So the serious bowlers, when you show up to one of those events, how many balls are you bringing with you?
Well, I only bring 3. Dick might bring more than that, but the serious ones bring about 6.
They'll bring 6 to 8. They'll ship them there, and they'll have a plane
Dave-
to haul them around in the bowling alleys. They're all different textures. They all react differently on how they roll them according to the different
Oil
lanes and the
patterns and
oil
stuff.
pattern. Look at there, it's got
Oh, yeah.
bowling lingo.
A little background there, yeah.
So, it's amazing. The
I
series.
do have another great bowling story that I know my dad is looking on, and he'd be thrilled about this. My oldest grandson, Trey Mitchell, is a junior in high school. He lives in Madison, Wisconsin, where his dad's on the staff at Wisconsin. And I got him bowling when he was a little dude, about 4 or 5. He was a skinny little lefty, and he started throwing it with 2 hands. I said, don't let anybody change that. You always bowl 2-handed. We're going to teach you how to bowl with 2 hands. And he got a little bit better every year I would take him. He never bowled in a league or anything. He'd just go with me when I would practice to get ready for the USBC tournament. And I would teach him some things, and he got a little bit better. When he goes on to high school and goes out for the bowling team, on Monday night of this week, we got the call at home. His team won their match that night, and they qualified for the state tournament in Wisconsin in high school bowling. And he's turned out to be a really good bowler. I mean, he throws a lot better ball than his grandpa ever did by far. And he's this 2-hand lefty. He's about 6'4" now, long arms, got good leverage. And I've just had so much fun watching him develop and accomplish this because, Dick and I had great experiences in high school and athletics, and Jim did too. And, at Pettisville, we had success, and that was so much fun and a huge part of our lives. Now I'm watching my oldest grandson experience that in the game of bowling that his great-grandfather got us all involved with. So it's been just a terrific experience. March 6th, 7th, 8th, man, I'm heading to Wausau, Wisconsin to watch the Wisconsin High School State Tournament.
And Tim's excited because next year, not this year, but next year at this national tournament that we go to every year, we take 2 teams, 2 5-man teams. And his grandson is going to be one of our guys next year.
Oh, nice.
So that's going to be neat.
Yeah, he turns 18 on St. Patrick's Day, we always go at the end of March. So you got to be 18, and he turns 18. He's going to be my doubles partner, so he can maybe carry Grandpa to some new heights and tournament.
Goal was to have an all Selgo team at one time, and we did that. And so now we're gonna start it over. That's cool.
Going way back before that, your grandfather with the bowling, do you know why he got involved with bowling?
Oh, boy, I don't know. He was not a great bowler. He was an okay bowler, but I don't know how he started the business. But he had owned a little 8-lane center there in Port Clinton, Ohio, which has since burned down a long time ago.
Yeah.
But I don't know how he got started.
I have no idea. Although I can remember my dad saying that bowling alleys are really bars with the game of bowling in them because they make their money off the bars, not the bowling. And so maybe Grandpa wanted to own a bar and they had 8 bowling lanes in it, so that's the one he bought. I don't know.
Best thing ever happened to bowling was when they did the no smoking thing. My gosh, it used to kill all of us when we go in there and go home and our wives take that jacket off, take your clothes off and go take a shower. And I used, as a phys ed teacher at Archbold, we had a bowling alley right in town, 2 blocks away from the bowling center. I had my own bus driver's license. I would take my phys ed class once a month to the bowling lanes. And there was nobody in there smoking at the time, but the residue was there.
Yeah.
We'd go back into school and the teachers would just kill me because we'd stink up every classroom.
Oh,
Well, let's back her up to basketball. So this is a basketball podcast that, the Sembles now are in Pettisville. You young guys are growing up and now you hit the high school grade. You said Dad was coaching, Dick Senior was coaching. You had these great teams. Your senior year, 1971, you were first team all Ohio. What's your average?
31.
31 points a game. No 3-point shot either, was there, Dick?
No 3-point shot.
I'd have been a few beyond there.
I wasn't interested in going inside and getting knocked down and getting blocked. I tried that at college level. It didn't work too well.
So we had first teamer back in 71. There was a local guy from Henry County also on the first team. Who was that?
Steve Sonnenberg.
Out of Henry County.
Steve.
Sonnenberg.
Yeah, and he played at Georgia Tech, and we played them
Yeah.
in the Maryland Invitational. We played each other. That was cool.
So that's
Dick, you beat them, didn't you? The night our dad got inducted in the Hall of Fame at Baldwin Wallace College, he got Jim and I had to go with him to his Hall of Fame induction. And Dick, your team beat Sonnenberg's team. They were ranked like 5th in the state at the time.
Moved the game from Pettisville's gym to the big gym at Archbold, which is the middle school gym now, to accommodate the crowd, and we beat them. And it was a big game. They had Sweary, Sonnenberg. They were good. They were really good.
Well, then, just real quick, we'll touch on you mentioned the state, the tournament, 1970, baseball, 71.
The state runner-up?
Yeah.
70.
You had a baseball team that's runner-up, okay? But to get into the state tournament, who'd you have to beat?
I'm not bringing this up, but he did. So we played Patrick Kenny and the Krause boys in the regional final at Deschner, which was that was a big time facility for us. Nobody back then had a baseball field worth a darn. Grass in there, dirt infield, maybe a bench for a dugout, no fences. And we get to play at Deschner in the regional tournament. We had to play the hometown team, but we were fortunate to come out on top there and go on and end up being state runner-up. We lost in the state championship game, we lost to Cincinnati Lincoln Heights. And
What's unique about them?
I think the only all-black school maybe the only school, maybe not necessarily all black, but they won the basketball championship and the baseball that year.
And then what they do? Close the school.
defunct.
Yeah, now they're
Yeah.
With some Cincinnati Prince.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, they're
Hey. Dave, I've got a story about that game, that regional final game in Deschler. I'm now athletics director at Grand Valley. It's probably 2010, 2008, somewhere in there. We're playing Ashland in the NCAA tournament. And I'm standing there watching the baseball game, and this guy comes up to me and introduced himself. It was Denny Meyer. It's Denny, right?
Yeah.
No, his first name, yeah. And his son was a really good player for Ashland. And he goes, "You don't know me, but I just wanted to introduce myself because I'm from Northwest Ohio and da da da. I know you play." I go, "Well, Denny," I go, "you're wrong. I do remember you, but unfortunately, you don't want me to remember why I remember you." He made the error. I think that caused us to score a couple runs to win the game. He laughed. He knew all about it. But that was just ironic. 30 some years later, I ran into him.
I ended up coaching against him a lot in junior high basketball. He coached for Patrick Henry and I coached with him. We saw each other all the time.
But here's the side bit of that story that I still don't understand. All right, and you guys, your coach, you've got a Division I athlete who pitches on Friday and pitches himself into the regional final game.
I know the answer to this.
All right, the next day, where do you put him?
Right field.
No, where would you normally put him?
Where would I put him? I
Yeah.
put him in right field. No, I'm kidding. Shortstop.
Absolutely. You put him in short, your best athlete in the whole field, let alone your team. And Dave Ripke, God bless his soul, he puts Emil in right field. And he made 2 catches in right field that the normal dork in right field were not even. And it beat us. And I still say Dave Ripke, when I used to see him at different meetings, I'm going, "You're either the smartest guy I know or the dumbest guy I know," but it worked out for him.
But his philosophy on that was that I was pitching a lot of games and he wanted to have one guy at shortstop and keep him there. It was Denny right pitcher. And seemed to work out pretty good for us.
Well, the reason I knew the answer to that, I knew where he was going with it, is because Denny Meyer told me that story numerous times. And you made a couple plays on the line, like Coach Krause said, a couple plays nobody else would have made. And I always remembered him telling me that.
Oh, that was great.
Okay, so we'll get to your next phase in a minute. Let's go to Tim. Tim, you're a 76 grad. All right, and your senior year was pretty special.
Yes.
Second team All Ohio. And you averaged what? 19, 20, something like that.
Yeah, I averaged 19.
Passer, you didn't have to rely on, you had obviously a good team, as you mentioned.
Absolutely.
State final game. Talk about that game and who you played and how that went.
Well, we played Indian Valley South, coached by Charlie Huggins, the father of Bob Huggins and Harry Huggins and Larry Huggins. Harry and Larry were on that team. I think Harry went to Rice, if I recall correctly. Larry, of course, went on to Ohio State and had a very good career playing, I believe, for Eldon Miller at Ohio State. And he was a freshman on that team. And it was a great game. It was close the whole way. I hit a shot to put us up by 1 at the end of the third quarter. And we went a few possessions and didn't score. And they got a 4 or 5 point lead on us in the fourth quarter. And, in those days, you didn't have a 3-point shot. 5 point lead, that was a 3 possession difference in those days. And so we had to foul. And I remember telling my teammates, foul the freshman. And Larry Huggins went 8 for 8 from the foul line in the fourth quarter of that game. After hitting about 6 in a row, their other guard was a kid named Brian Lentz, and we're standing along the free throw lane, waiting for the next shot. And he turns to me and says, "Bad idea, man, bad idea." And I kind of nodded, "Yeah, I think you're right." And we lost that game. The final spread was about 10, I think, 63-53. But what a special memory, and Dave, you know this. You coached in Columbus. Were you in St. John's Arena when your team went, David? Yeah. And that was just such a special place. It had great character. The balcony was overhanging. And, I told this story just about 2 weeks ago, when we beat Fort Jennings in the regional finals to qualify to go to state. And I will tell you this, I've been involved in a lot of games in my lifetime, a lot. High school, college, as a coach and administrator, that game had the most pressure on it of any game I've ever been involved with, because that was the game we had to win to go to state, and that was our dream. My team and my classmates, our dream was always to go to state. And the second grade was when my dad first started taking us to the state tournament. And, Dave, as your dad was ever present at the state tournament as a district board member, I believe. And we got to go, and we went every year, and we stayed at a small little motel in Grove City on the outskirts of Columbus called the Buckeye Motel. And part of it was because our dad had an uncle. Uncle Ted lived out that way. We always went and visited Uncle Ted, but he knew about the Buckeye. He said, go stay there. And that's where we stayed every year through my junior year in high school. And my senior year, when we beat Fort Jennings in the regional finals, our dad was the athletics director at the time. Coach Phil Rickner was our head coach, and Dad was the athletic director, and he drove the bus to Bowling Green. And on the way home, of course, it was a happy bus ride home back to Pettisville. And he's driving the bus, and he called me up to the front. And I went up to the front of the bus, and he looked at me in that big bus mirror, with a big smile. And he says, we won't be staying at the Buckeye this year. I'll never forget that. And what a great experience to play. We played both of our games, the semifinals against Arcanum and the finals against Indian Valley South, were the two largest attendance of that tournament. And that, I don't know if that was the first year of 3 divisions in Ohio. It might have been.
My senior year, the first year for 3.
Yeah. Okay, but Barberton was there with the Bodner twins. There were some other great teams there, and we drew the most people. The entire Pettisville community and Fulton County, and perhaps Henry and Williams County and Defiance County followed us, and it was just one of the greatest experiences of my life, because as a little kid in second grade, man, I couldn't wait to get a chance to play in St. John's Arena. I shoot baskets at our basket all the time thinking I'm playing in a state tournament, and I actually got to do it, and I still say to this day, I've enjoyed a lot of great games. And the Indiana one Dick mentioned earlier, and playing in the Sweet 16, but man, that's still, at my age now, that's still the greatest thrill of my athletics career.
I did some research on attendance, and you're right. The 2 games that you played, 13-8-72 for the Arcanum game. The final game was 13-7-51. The AAA game that year, final game was Barberton versus Middletown. Now you talk about 2 heavyweights there.
Yeah, Butch Carter.
Walker, the great Paul Walker, was the coach at Middletown, and
Butch Carter played for them.
13-8-90. So they all were similar, but today they would kill for 13-8-90 and whatever.
Yeah.
Doesn't happen anymore.
No, it was a great thrill, and St. John's Arena just had something special about it. I mean, the character of that facility, the balcony, the 4 corners, the scoreboards were in the corners, and that same guy was the announcer every year, and just to go down there and stand there for the starting lineups and the national anthem. But once the game started, we forgot about it. And thankfully, I had some teammates that got us off to a pretty good start against Arcanum, and we got in the flow of the game, and we're fortunate to beat them. I think it was a double-digit victory, and then tough loss to Indian Valley South. I will tell you this. People have told me when we lost in the state championships that the hurt and the sting of it will go away. Well, they were wrong. It still hurts that we had that game and lost it in the 4th quarter. So, but it was a great experience. I will also mention this. My brother Jim was a senior the year before, and my whole class were all juniors, and we went undefeated and went to the regionals at Bowling Green and lost to Marion Local in the semifinals, 68-62. They went on to win the state championship that year. That was a great game, and of course we got to go to Anderson Arena. I think Dick, I think your team and my teams have been the only Pettisville teams to win the districts, I think, that I can recall. and go to Bowling Green was a thrill, of course, but we lost to Marion Local. But that experience helped us out the next year. You know, we played in a nice arena and played in front of a packed Anderson arena, and we went back the next year and we were determined we were going to win that regional that year, and that really helped us out.
Probably getting rid of that dead weight brother of yours and making team.
Yeah, that's right. Jimmy was a great player. Unfortunately for him, he had a bunch of great kids in his classmate, but they weren't as talented at basketball as my classmates were. So we got to play together, he and I, his junior year, my sophomore year, and then of course his senior year, my junior year. But that game with Marion Local was it does bring to mind a memory in Henry County. That following year, they had everybody back but one guy, and we had everybody back but my brother Jim. And my dad was the athletic director at the time. He arranged a meeting. We played Marion Local at Napoleon in the Grand Canyon early in January on a Saturday night, sold out. It was a big-time high school basketball game, a single-A basketball game back then. We were both ranked top 5 in the state, and every radio station was covering it, and it was really cool. That was a great experience. I'm thankful for my dad for having the foresight to put that thing together and make it happen, because we all remembered that game. We beat them 55-51. Fortunately for me, I had a pretty good game, and the Toledo coaches were there, so that helped out too.
Stay right there on that subject, or go ahead.
Well, one correction on Pettisville teams winning the district. The first year we lived in Pettisville with Denzel.
That's right.
Coach.
Yes.
Pettisville went to the regionals.
Okay.
And it was in Lima. Lima senior. And
Lima senior. Yep.
Won the semifinal game. I can remember as a little 4th grader, all the talk was, well, they're going to stay overnight in a hotel. This is going to mess them all up. And I used to stay overnight in a hotel. They were taking up a collection or whatever for all that. And then they stayed overnight and they lost next day. So I think Western Reserve beat them.
No, I think we beat Western Reserve and lost to York.
Oh, yeah.
We lost to York, which I don't think exists now. I don't know what school district it was in, but the coach of York was Bob Gwynn. Bob Gwynn was the athletic director at Springfield High School near Toledo. That was my first job, teaching and coaching at Springfield High School, and he was the athletic director.
Hey, I got a good story with that team. Can I tell it? The Pettisville team of 1963, they got a pretty good team. Well, right before the season, or at the start of the year, Pettisville hires a new superintendent. He's got a 6'9" son. All right, Byron Diamond is his name. He's not bad. Okay, he's a lefty, got a nice touch from the foul line, and they have this great season. Well, shortly after the season, superintendent got fired. So the Archball people are still writing us about bringing this 6'9" kid in just for the season and then getting rid of him.
Yeah, Pettisville was 60 years ahead of the transfer portal. We brought in a one and done. Got to the regional finals.
Well, you're talking about St. John Arena and Anderson Arena, 2 great arenas. Everybody that we bring on this show, they talk about their favorite arenas. They bring those 2 up. I'm curious, you guys' favorite arenas that you got to play in during your days on the hardwood.
Go ahead, Dick. I'll let you go first.
That's what sold me on going there, man. I would go to the games and during my high school years, man, this place is magical. And I wanted to be a part of that. No doubt. I played at Cole Field House, Maryland, with Lefty Giselle was the coach there. I played at the Buffalo Auditorium where the Buffalo Braves used to play. It was like 18. The Knicks played the night before against Buffalo. We went to that game. But he probably played a lot more of them than I did.
Yeah, that's a great question. I've never really thought about that. I was fortunate enough to play in Assembly Hall, Bloomington, Indiana, Market Square Arena in Indianapolis, which no longer exists, but that's where the Sweet 16 was held in '79 when our Toledo team went there. But Chrysler Arena played there, and that's a great arena. It still is. The floor at Chrysler Arena 50 years ago, back then, was awesome. It was by far the best play. It had a lot of bounce to it. I could almost dunk at Chrysler Arena because it had a lot of juice to it. But I would say without a doubt, for me, it was Savage Hall, which was then Centennial Hall. we opened Centennial Hall, as Dick said, my freshman year against Indiana. So I got to play in the brand new arena at Toledo, not the old field house, as many people might remember. And, it seated 9,000 then. And they've done a great job of restructuring it now. And it's, I think, a little over 6,500 now, but they did a great job in remodeling it. But back then, we sold it out, and it was loud, and it was great. And of course, I was fortunate to play again with some great players for a great coach, and we had a great 4 seasons there. But I do have a story that relates a little bit to today's NIL money. In my senior year, in mid-January, we played Dayton at home. The year before, Dayton had beat us at Dayton by 1. And we were both in the top 25 back then. Don Donner was the coach at Dayton. Roosevelt Chapman played. And they were great games. Well, we beat them by 1 at Toledo. And it was a great game. It was sold out. Whatever TV was back then, it was on TV. And after the game, as I like to tell the story, 3 of my teammates and I were rehydrating at a local establishment after the game. And as we were sitting there, people were congratulating us and so on. We got talking, and Harvey Knuckles, you guys might remember that name. He was the MAC Player of the Year in 1981. And Jay Lehman and I were sitting there, and somebody said, man, wasn't that great? That was the 12th straight sellout. Isn't it cool that we play in front of you? Yeah. And Harvey says, hey, how much money they making off us? And I said, well, Harvey, it's about 9,000 a game. Back then, I think it was about $5 a ticket. I said, about 45 grand a game times 12. That's a little over $500,000. He said, yeah. And we get $195 a month room and board money. And so I know the feeling of some of those kids today, of all the time and practice and effort they put in. And there's all kinds of money being made on these college games. You'll see them tonight on television, of course. And I've always been in favor of the college student athletes getting some of that money. Now, they don't have any rules around it now, and it's out of hand. But once they get some boundaries on it, I think it will settle down.
What kind of boundaries would you like to see?
Well, I think they have to have collective bargaining and have the players represented at the collective bargaining table, and essentially work out a salary cap for collegiate student athletes. Because right now there is no cap. I mean, we just saw this week the quarterback from Duke now is going to Miami because they could throw $6 million at him. The going rate for quarterbacks in the portal this year was $5 million, and Miami supposedly is throwing $6 million, so he's leaving Duke. And I think that the collective bargaining will allow for enforcement of some of the rules. Right now, there's no enforcement mechanism. What are you going to do? There's nothing to do to go lose in court right now. But if Congress will give the NCAA the opportunity to get some boundaries around this, because remember, college athletics is interstate. I mean, interstate. These games are played in different states, and different states now have their own rules where it comes to NIL or whatever. And they've got to get so it's nationally enforceable of what they do. I wish I had a better answer, and it's not going to be easy, and it's going to be complicated. And anytime there's big money involved, as you know, it's going to be very emotional and hard to satisfy everyone. But I think they need to do that. And then I think, because we all enjoy the games, no question about it. But what I think, especially our generation, doesn't enjoy is, I'm watching Indiana play Purdue. And Purdue, I know their players. They've been there a while. Those guards have been there for 4 years. I know Matt Painter, their coach. I'm thinking, all right, now who's the coach at Indiana and who are these guys? That's the part that's frustrating, I think, to most people. And it's getting frustrating, by the way, with big donors. Big donors are getting tired of putting big money into teams and programs and coaches, and they're gone after 1 year or 2 years. So I think you're going to see a real shift as it's playing out as we see it. But it's going to be a wild ride.
He was,
Go ahead.
he was one of the first of the NIL guys before anybody ever knew what it was, because in Pettisville, we had Rick Mercy coming. All right, John, the official mayor, Pettisville, hired him to bag seed. And every time I went up there, he was sitting in the office with his feet up on the desk, still collecting a paycheck. So if they go back and check the record, Pettisville might have to forfeit some of those games.
The office was air conditioned. The rest of that seed company was hot and dusty and dirty. So I hung out with Joe a lot in the office. Cushy job.
I want to know what high school gyms. Talk about college. How about just a few high school gyms? We had a lot of local high school fans listening.
Well, I'll start with that. Without question, the Grand Canyon Napoleon was my favorite by far. Again, the floor at that high school was like Chrysler Arenas. We were warming up, man. I was above the rim, and you know, you walked in and went down, and so the noise was deafening. I can tell you, you know, I loved our old gym in Pettisville. I mean, I can't tell you how many hours of shooting baskets. When I was a little kid, my dad was coaching, and I was shooting at the side basket and get chased off the floor. I loved it. What a great small gym that doesn't even exist anymore. But as Dick said, we played a lot of our games at Archibald Bryan Wasion because we had to accommodate the big crowds. When our team was making our good runs, our junior and senior year, almost all of our home games were not at our gym. But man, when we played at Napoleon, it was awesome. For a high school gym, that was big time now. And then I'll go to my grave saying that.
One time.
Hey, Tim, a few years ago, they renovated the Grand Canyon and they took out the floor. Okay, and they sold sections of the floor. Well, I went in there when they ripped the floor up, and underneath it, sure enough, every so many feet were these big automotive springs.
Yeah.
And the foam or the floor could never be replicated again because so many of those springs needed repaired. You know, there were some dead spots where the springs had broken, and they couldn't get those springs fabricated to meet those specifications. So it literally had heavy duty, huge automotive springs every, 3 to 5 feet. And that's why the floor had that bounce.
You know, I spoke at Rotary here in downtown Grand Rapids about 6 or 7 years ago, and I often get asked if I miss coaching, when I went into administration and so on. And I said, I've always answered, I don't miss coaching, I miss playing. And what I miss the most, I told these people, when you watch those college athletes on television, it looks glamorous. You don't see the weight room work, the running, the practices, the film sessions. You don't see all the work they put in behind the scenes. And it's a grind. I'm telling you, college athletics at any level in any sport is a grind to one degree or another. So the joy, the reward is the games, of course. And there's nothing better than being an athlete and hitting the floor in basketball and having the entire arena roaring on your behalf. And when I played at Savage Hall, when I was at Toledo, we had sold out crowds. Man, that was the coolest thing. But I will tell you this, equally as cool was when we played at Napoleon, and we did it 7 times in my career. My sophomore, junior, and senior year, we played both district games there. And then my senior year, we played that game against Marion Local. There was nothing cooler than coming into that gym with your duffel bag. You had to walk down the steps to the locker room, and the crowd saw your team coming in, and they went crazy. That was one of the coolest things, man. You talk about getting ready to play. If you couldn't get ready to play when you walked into the Grand Canyon, that place went loud. You needed to get your heart checked. I'm telling you.
The opposite end of the spectrum, Grand Canyon, I think everybody would just idolizes. But I will fondly remember the gyms that we played in.
Yeah.
I remember as a kid going to watch Pettisville play at Chesterfield and Metamora. The walls were out of bounds on the side. You know, they had that little stage on one side, the players sat up on the stage, because they would have been in bounds if they hadn't. You could get maybe 200 people in there at the most. And I can remember, my sophomore year, we played Ridgeville. Ridgeville was still at school. Dave Pratt was the coach, all right? And, you know, you walk in there and obviously it just jammed packed. People had to get in line on Wednesdays to get tickets for games back then. Nobody knows what that's like now. But those are some great memories too. The locker rooms are all cramped and sweaty and hot. You can't move.
Richville what?
Falcons.
Yo.
Ridgeville Falcons. Steve Mayo Meyer. Carl Henry got his start there. Oh, there's a lot of good players came out of Ridgeville.
Back in Frank Wars wasn't bad.
Yeah.
What did the weight room look like back in your day at Pettisville?
Weight room was in our basement. That was one of the things, my dad was a little bit ahead of things in terms of, he knew you had to have strength. So, and the theory was, you can't lift playing basketball, you're gonna mess up your shot. He had us lifting in the basement before, and he's a phys ed teacher too. He had basketball guys lifting in phys ed. And so that was a little bit ahead. He was ahead of the game a little bit in terms of fast break. He wanted us to get the ball out and go. Weren't many teams doing that.
Well, he had to be a shooting guru though, in terms of teaching form and technique, because all three of you guys, Jim included, Jim, we're saying nice things about you now, had fine looking basketball technique strokes. I mean, and it's evident in your career totals. Jack, 1,611 points. Tim, 1,275 career points. Jimmy, 1,060 points. So you got three sons all over 1,000 points. How many other Pettisville guys are there in that? Well, Jim Weber would be one.
Yeah.
Who else?
You know how many he scored in one game?
Yes, I know that number. 72.
Yeah, but you know, part of that story, he was 6'6" or 6'7". And that's back when they had jump ball after basketball. So he took somebody, they'd throw it back to him and he'd lay it in. And so he scored 73 in one game. And then went to Kentucky under Adolph Rupp and
You're getting ahead of the story.
Okay.
We would have come to that.
oh, okay.
Tim gets something to say.
Well, going back to weight rooms, when we had our anniversary of our team about 3 weeks ago, we talked about our weight training. Phil Rickner, who was our coach, got an isometric bar. And the shop teacher at Pettisville made this isometric bar with two pipes, and you didn't lift it because we didn't have dumbbells at Pettisville High School. You pushed against it, and that was our weight training back then. So it's come a long ways in about 50 years. I can tell you that.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting now. We go back to that Fulton County team. You two guys are on it. Jim, you were number 6, so you were close to get on it, Jim. But we couldn't have that family rule.
Two guys.
And then we have Jim Weber, a Pettisville hero way back in the 40s. He already mentioned the fact that he left Little Pettisville, Ohio, and went to UK, Big Blue, playing for Adolph Rupp. Now that's pretty impressive. I don't care what happens. Unfortunately, he got hurt and he had some illness, and then he went to the war, but didn't get to play an extensive amount. But he still had a Big Blue and Adolph Rupp in his career. That's pretty impressive. And then we go to the fourth member, Little Fayette now, Wendell Hexmeyer. You guys remember him, don't you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They were
Great
good.
player. Played at Ohio State.
No, he shot from off the side. He had a shot off to the side, but he was strong. He was 6'4", and he dominated at the high school level. And he went to Ohio State, and he just wasn't at a very good size. He wasn't a guard, no, and he wasn't at a very good size to be at Ohio State. But they came to Pettisville, our dad's first year head coach. They came into Pettisville at 14-0. And they had Riegsecker, who was another big guy. They had two Schaffners playing guards, good players, and a Bob Rep. They were good. They went to the regionals, I think. But Pettisville was having a 500 season, and Pettisville beat them.
Well, Wendell was the third team on Ohio that year as a senior.
Really?
But there's another Holgate guy that year was a first teamer. Anybody remember his name?
On the Fulton County team?
Oh, no, on the all Ohio team.
Oh, here was it?
7. Wendell was a third teamer. This gentleman from Holgate was a first teamer.
Max Miller?
Max Miller went to
I don't know.
Army and played for Bob Knight.
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
For a while.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you can go from Pettisville to Kentucky. You can go to Pettisville to Toledo. You can go from Fayette to Ohio.
Well, I think it's funny because people these days always talk about, well, you're not going to get recruited. You're from, some small. Well, they found these guys back then. They're going to find you now with the technology we had,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It makes sense to me.
And then finally, the fifth guy on that team is a more recent player, Austin Rotoff from Wauseon.
And ironically, I remember him well because coaching junior high basketball under Coach Doug Kraus at Archbald, we had some really good players. And this was the year we had Jaron Williams and Rigo Ramos, and we're pretty good. We're undefeated, I think. We're playing Wauseon in the championship of the NWAL tournament. And we got the lead. They come down and get the last shot and miss. Nobody boxed out Rotroff. He put it back in. They win at the buzzer, and Wauseon people go crazy. That hurt. Even at junior high level, and your team's undefeated, and our guys were crushed.
Well, Austin, yeah, he was a first team Division II player back in 2018.
He went to Duquesne.
Went to Duquesne, played for Keith Dombrot,
Yeah,
who was a high school coach in Ohio, coaching
LeBron James.
a guy named LeBron James. But Austin scored over 1,000, was 1,057 points in his career. His senior year, they were 25-1, got beaten in regional. Great team, but then regional, and then the 17 team though, that's the one that went to Columbus, got in the final game, and then got beat by Akron St. Pete in that game, and he had 18 points in that finale. But he had an excellent career, and he's well deserving of that recognition for sure.
Well, Doug's in here too, so I'm curious, are there any guys that should be candidates to be on that list?
Well, I will give you one that Doug coached. No, Doug didn't coach him, but he coached with him. Joe Frank deserves mention. He took his team to the state his senior year. And of course, he's had a great career following Doug as coach at Archibald. But Joe stands out to me, and Dick and I, we've kind of exchanged some communication recently. Delta had some great players back in the day. But so as far as the recent ones, I wouldn't know those, but I would argue Joe Frank could. You talk about somebody getting the most out of every inch of his size. He wasn't big, he wasn't strong, but man, could he fill it up, and he was a great leader for his team.
You didn't want to pattern your shot after Joe's because they had that little funky spin to it. It still works.
It went in.
Who else?
oh my, there's, you think of just the Archibald guys.
Yeah.
Roger Springer was a big time player for Archibald, and then Gene Gehring, who was a great player for Doug for many years. To Lynn Badenhop, who went on to play at Bowling Green, was a leading scorer at Bowling Green his junior year.
Steve Reddick.
Steve Reddick, who went to Toledo, blew out his knee, unfortunately, during his freshman year. Didn't get to finish there, but Dan Borchard, one of the other guys I had, Bryce Williams, Keith and Sean Roth. There's a lot of really good players.
That's the thing about, you look at that list, and there's 3 Pettisville guys, all deserving. Obviously, Wendell from Fayette, Rotroff from Wauseon. But here's Archibald, the number 2 victories in the state of Ohio in terms of history, basketball wise, and they've got nobody mentioned. So I think giving them that mention like you just did, I think that's appropriate because there's a lot of deserving guys.
Well, you guys talked about great teammates, great Fulton County players. How about looking back over your high school career? You guys are both pretty sharp, so you could probably rattle off a couple. Some of the top players you played against in the regular season or tournament at Pettisville High School.
I think Bob Delman right off the bat, Brent Moss, Dave Burkholder, and they had good teammates go with them too. They had Lowman, they had Smith, and big guy inside, and they were really good. That's 2 right off the bat that I think of. You had a bunch of them.
Well, I mentioned that Marion local team. They had a kid named Steve Hardings who went to Kent State. I don't think he had much of a career there, but they had some really good players. But the Buckeye Border Conference was really strong our senior year. Stryker had an outstanding team. I think we were the only ones that beat them in the regular season. until they got lost in the tournament to Hicksville, who was very strong. We might have had a three-way tie for the league that year. In fact, now I think about it, we each might have had one loss, but I'm not sure I'm accurate about that. But Stryker beat us. That was our only regular season loss. We played the game at Bryan. Dan Klein was their coach, who was a terrific coach. And Don Black played for them, who was probably their best scorer. Joe Greaser, a great all-around athlete, and Jim Wise was the other guard. They were really a great team, and of course, very well coached. Hicksville had some really good players. Jim Pepple was his brother's name was John. I can't remember. I think Jim Pepple and Mark Prokratsky were both really good players for Hicksville, and they beat Stryker in the district semis by one. Prokratsky hit a shot at the buzzer to beat him by one. And we had split with Stryker. We opened the season by beating them in the first game, and then they beat us in that game at Bryan about this time of year. And then heading to the districts, we beat Ottawa Hills in the semis, and so we beat Hicksville in the district finals. But those guys, and there were a lot of good players back then. I can't remember all of them, but we were fortunate to have several strong teams in our league that year. That got us prepared when we went to Columbus. We weren't intimidated at all. We knew we played some good teams. Of course, we played the Marion local team and some tough teams in the regionals, Riverdale and Fort Jennings. So we were well prepared when we went to St. John's.
How about players once you got to college? Who did you hate playing against once you got into the college game, if there were some guys?
Oh, man. Well, that game Dick talked about against Indiana, I remember playing defense. I played 6 minutes in the game. Dave, you'll appreciate this. You're a coach. My claim to fame in that game is I played 6 minutes, and on the stat sheet, I had zeros all across the stat sheet. Nothing else, but just put Selgo in. He won't turn it over. He won't do anything. Just put him in. And I was there to rest the other guards, and so I did that. But I remember running into a screen by Kent Benson, who was about 6'11", 250. And I stopped like that. And I can remember my head buzzing a little bit because it was a pretty tough screen. But probably, the two best players I played against, Isaiah Thomas was certainly had to be one of them. He was a freshman my senior year. We played Indiana in Market Square Arena in Indianapolis. After beating them in that game my freshman year, the return game was not until my senior year, and we were really good. And they, of course, that would have been 79-80, Isaiah's freshman year. And they had Scott, they had, Wilkerson, all those guys are really good players, and Tolbert and all those guys. But I remember coming across half court, and Isaiah's guarding me, and I went to spin dribble. And the next thing I know, the ball was halfway down the court. He fleeced me and went for a layup. But he was a great player. Ronnie Lester at Iowa was also a great player. He might have been the equal of Isaiah, but he hurt his knee his first year in the NBA. He never had as great an NBA career, but he was really good, really good.
We played at Chrysler Arena. Well, before that, Campy Russell was one of the best players, who was Kenzie Russell's son, and had a great career. One of the guys that got the most notoriety in the MAC, Ohio University recruited Walter Lucken from out east somewhere, Connecticut. Okay, he was supposed to be the real deal. He was the cover of Sports Illustrated. Yeah, lefty. And I guarded him for a while. I don't remember how my points he scored on him, but he certainly was a good one. At least he was hyped probably more than he really ended up doing. But.
Well, you were kind of unique in the sense that here you went to Bowling Green and played two sports. That doesn't really happen anymore. That you were.
It almost can't happen anymore.
Right.
At least back then, we'd play our last basketball game. I'd have 1 week of baseball practice and go on a spring trip. Now they started playing baseball mid-February, and basketball still got a month to go or almost. So it was it was doable. It wasn't necessarily easy, but it was doable. My biggest problem was I was baseball in the fall, then basketball, then baseball in the spring, and in the summer, I'd go play in a summer baseball league somewhere. I didn't have time to practice my basketball in the off season, and that didn't help my basketball any.
Well, the other thing, your freshman year, freshmen couldn't play varsity basketball.
That
correct?
was the last year the freshmen were not eligible, my freshman year. We had a pretty good class, Cornelius Cash, 6'8", and Skip Howard, 6'10" from Dayton Dunbar, Jeff Montgomery from Miamisburg, and Ron Weber, who's related to Jim Weber somehow, from Rossford, who was a two-sport guy. He was a really good track athlete too. But
Well, did you practice with the folk varsity?
oh yeah.
And you probably beat them all the time, didn't you?
Well, they would have, every year there was a freshman varsity game preseason. And the place was almost sold out. And then a lot of times we'd play freshman games, then the varsity game like you normally would. The crowds were bigger for our freshman games than they would leave. The varsity just wasn't all that good at that time. And well, except for Dylan. Dylan was good. Dylan Badenot, who's also from Archbald, was one of the hardest work. He was the hardest worker in the program, without a doubt. And could shoot the lights out. I'm not sure he got a fair shake his senior year. Junior year, he led the team in scoring, and then all of us guys came in and kind of took over. And he came off the bench, but he could have got a lot more time than he did, I thought.
Read off their point totals again for me.
The Seminoles?
Yes.
Dick, 1,611, Tim, 1,275, Jim, 1,060.
Can we find out how many brothers in the state of Ohio have all scored 1,000 points?
That's pretty good.
Can we think of anybody right off the top of our heads?
Huggins is,
Yeah. I bet
oh,
Huggins is probably dead because they all played as freshmen.
who's that, Tim?
I think you're right, Dave. The Huggins boys probably all did because I would bet they all played as freshmen. Charlie played them all when they were freshmen, I'm sure.
Yeah. I take a little ribbon, a little heat once in a while because I scored a lot of points, but obviously I had to shoot a lot to score a lot of points. But what I tell people too, it's true. Everybody on our starting fives averaged a double figures. Our scores were 75 to 80 almost every game back then. So everybody was scoring. It wasn't just like one guy.
How hard was it going from Pettisville gym to a tournament setting like Anderson Arena? I mean,
Yeah,
adjustment.
it was an adjustment. Before I get to that, though, you'd mentioned Jim Weber earlier. I can remember the game and I can see the picture when Dick broke his scoring record at Pettisville. He came back to the game and handed in the game ball afterwards, and it was a big ceremony. Well, now, here it is, holy cow, 50 years later, Jack Leppelmeyer at Pettisville is creeping up on Eames' scoring record for the Blackbirds. And he's an outstanding player. I got a chance to see him play a few weeks ago when they honored our team. And his dad's doing a great job coaching Pettisville, Brian Leppelmeyer, and Jack's really a good player. So Eames sitting there following his point totals every game, I'm sure. But what was your question again, Doug? Sorry, I know, arenas. There was no question because our floor at Pettisville was 84 feet long that we had an adjustment to make. And then we went and played, Anderson Arena seemed like a giant arena back then. Today's world, you probably wouldn't think it was that big, but man, it was big. And then he played St. John's Arena. I think the floor was probably the biggest adjustment to make. Shooting wise, the background's certainly different. I mean, in Pettisville, you have the wall at one end of the basket and then the stage at the other end. With two baskets hanging from the ceiling that had a lot of give to them. But the moving to those huge, university gyms was just, it was such a great experience. I don't remember thinking a whole lot about it other than when you got out there, you realize, man, this floor is bigger than the one we practice on all week. We actually moved. Coach Rickner had us practice, and I was reminded of this 3 weeks ago. Before we went to regionals my senior year, we went to Bowling Green and practiced there. somehow we got on there to practice, or maybe it was before we went to St. John's Arena, just to keep practicing on that length of a floor.
I can remember my junior year, we went to the regionals. Centennial Hall wasn't built yet. We played at the UT Fieldhouse. Okay, and even that, compared to Pettisville, I had a little trouble with the background distance and so forth. Then I didn't shoot well. Blame it on that.
You three, and Jim in there. What was the secret? What's the recipe that made you guys so successful? Was it your dad? What was the reason why you guys had such an illustrious basketball careers?
That's a great question. And I think for parents out there with children that love to play sports, our dad did a couple of things. Of course, he was a coach. And, the secret is to practice a lot, to shoot a lot. I mean, I think back to how many times I shot the basketball. We had our grandfather, who owned the bowling alley, build us a little basketball court in our backyard in Pettisville. It would have been deep enough, maybe not even a top of the key shot. But we grew up in a smaller basket. We started on a smaller basket to learn to shoot right. As Dave mentioned, we had the right technique because he didn't want us flinging it up there. He wanted us to learn to shoot the right way. But hours and hours of practice is the key. But the other thing that I look back now that I think our dad did was he sensed we loved sports and we loved the games. He took us to games all the time. We went to Defiance College games and watched some of Marv Holmberger's great teams play all the time. We went to other high school games that were big games. He took us to the state tournament. We went to baseball games a lot to feed our interest in baseball. And I think, that's the one thing that I think you can do with your children or grandchildren, expose them to those kinds of things to see what motivates them, see what gets them excited. Just shooting a basketball always got me excited. It was something that I had the bug for, and just shot an awful lot of baskets on those outdoor courts in Pettisville, Ohio. Back then, we weren't playing in the summertime indoors. We were shoveling snow, putting our gloves on, and we were shooting outside, man, all day long, till Mom called us in.
Yeah, the way we grew up, our dad wanted us to practice. I'm sure their coaches all wanted them to practice, and their dad too. But it was easier to do because there was no computers, there were no games to play, there was no 2 television stations. And if you wanted something to do, you found something to do, and that was practice. But the other thing, we didn't play year-round team basketball, like travel leagues and AAU and all that stuff, and get burned out from actual playing instead of just practicing. And Doug Williams is a big advocate of not doing that stuff, and now he's had 2 kids have great college careers, 3 kids have great college careers. Now he's got 1 playing professional baseball, and those kids never played on a travel team. They did a half hour, 45 minutes practice every day, and in their skills.
Elaborate on that a little bit. Are we doing too much of the traveling?
Yeah, injuries, you have knee problems, ankle problems, burnout. I coached a kid that was really good at a younger age. Well, and his parents would brag about, oh, he's playing, and I'm talking Little League now. He's playing in Atlanta, Georgia, he's playing in Tennessee. I said, you better be careful. He's gonna burn out, or he's gonna have injuries. And sure enough, he was burned out. He was a kid that was capable of playing college baseball, but never did because he had enough. And he started to have arm troubles and everything else. So I think you can overdo it. You can't overdo, just go out and shoot or field and ground balls, but playing games, you do too much.
Well, the part about playing games, okay, so you go play games.
Yeah.
Count the minutes you actually have the ball in your hand.
Yeah.
I mean, it's maybe 6 or 7 minutes if you're lucky, if you're playing the full game. You're not getting better at
You
it.
get 5 shots where you get 100 shots in a fraction of the time.
Have the fundamentals go away a little bit? You coach?
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's taken a backseat, unfortunately, but the good programs, it's right there. I mean, the good programs that are established, it hasn't gone away. But I think programs that are struggling, they need to get back to that. They need to make that an emphasis and really work that in the youth programs getting the right people in their programs to help teach those fundamentals, because that's so crucial.
I can remember kids when we were all growing up, we're all looking for getting old enough so we can drive, get your driver's license. My goal was to get my driver's license so I could go to Archbald and go to the park and play basketball in the park with all those guys that were playing all the time. And that's just the way it was.
Today, I watch these guys shoot, at the college level and even some high schools have an equipment where you shoot it and the ball goes through and lands in the net and it shoots it back out to you. It rebounds it, sends it out to you. So you get a lot of shots in a short period of time. Well, back then, I was shooting by myself, chasing my own ball, and you focus a lot. At Pettisville, on the basketball court behind the school, if you missed and it went off the side, it went down the hill of the playground. And you had to run all the way down there to get it. Well, let me tell you something. You learn to concentrate when shooting the basketball when you have to chase everything down yourself.
Who was the guy on the Archfield playgrounds that you didn't want to play?
Billy, well, the guys that were always there, Billy Rivenall, Rick Stotzer, Steve Redding, Steve Meyer would come over from Ridgeville all the time, to Lynn Maiden. There was a game every night at the park there. So you could always have a game. And then you play a baseball game sometimes and then switch shoes and go over and play basketball. Just something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
And for me, Ruley Park, the basketball court there in Archibald, when I was then of age and going over there to play games, I mentioned Joe Frank earlier. Joe's 3 years younger than me. And so, I'm a sophomore, junior, and Joe was like a skinny little lefty 8th grader. And I always picked him on my team because I knew he could shoot it. He could make them. All right, there's a lot of shooters out there. You're looking for makers, and Joe could make them. And I'd have this little guy on my team, and we'd stay on the court. Let's put it that way. Win or stay. We stayed on the court.
Out there, all guys that make it. I like it.
I got one more question. Because you guys mentioned that you played a little football on the playground. If Pettisville had football, would have you played football?
Oh, well, we did play football, and I always tell the Archbald guys, we were a lot tougher than them because they had to wear equipment. We didn't wear equipment. We played in what was cemetery, okay? Now, half the cemetery lot had no gravestones in it. The other half was filled with gravestones. And we just have pickup football games over there. Now, I had lied a little bit. I did have my Sears and Roebuck plastic helmet and some shoulder pads I would wear. And some guys wouldn't have anything. And then we had a couple of adults come and play with us. Dave Blosser and Squeak Weber. And they would kind of pound on us a little bit. Toughened us up, I guess.
Lynn, there was some method to our dad's madness now. He moved us to Pettisville. When he was in college, he played at Baldwin Wallace. And as Dick had said earlier, back then they were much more big time. They're D3 now, but they played a big time basketball schedule, CCNY and NYU in the Madison Square Garden in those days. But he also played football his first year and broke his nose, and he had a scar his whole life here on his nose. Of course, they probably didn't have face masks then, but
It split him open, clear down his cheek.
Yeah, it split him open. And he always liked the fact that he didn't want his boys playing football getting hurt, so they wouldn't get hurt for basketball season. So I guess in that regard, I didn't miss it, but I love the sport of football. Always have since I've been an administrator at the college level. There's nothing like an all-day tailgating at a football stadium in our country.
Tim, what position would you play if you did play football?
Well, either quarterback or wide receiver, because I wasn't going to get hit that much. I guarantee you that.
Coach,
Well, I remember, they had the pump, pass, and kick. They still have that pump, pass, and kick. I went over to Archbald a couple times, and who else would have been there? Tim Greaser would have been our age, and so I remember getting a Detroit Lions jacket for winning that one year, and a Minnesota Vikings jacket one year. So that was, I guess, I claim to fame football.
Well,
That would have been probably what I've been playing. I don't know what would have happened with all the other sports if I've done that, but We used to go watch.
Do you have the sweatshirt? Undefeated football, Pettisville undefeated.
We used to usually go watch Wausau play, and I don't know why. Wausau was better way back then than Archibald football. Went back when Rick Volk was playing, those guys, and then, but we were either there at Archibald every Friday night watching the game. And that kind of gets juiced up a little bit. Dang, wish we had football, but. Got over, we had fall baseball instead, so we had something to do.
Fantastic,
You
man.
guys are awesome.
You guys are great.
Thanks for having us.
Hi again.
Appreciate you having us, it was fun.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, man.
Thank you, guys. This was a blast. I appreciate it.
Tim, thank you. Appreciate it.
All right.
Who says a college degree is the only path to a fulfilling career? At the Gherkin Companies, we offer rewarding livelihoods with or without a degree. Gherkin provides a generous benefits package, continuous training, top-notch equipment, and a culture that rewards effort. We're looking for rock-solid performers to help build and reinforce the region's infrastructure. Whether you have construction experience or are just starting your career, apply now at gherkincompanies.com/careers.
Back to the Black Swamp Basketball Podcast presented by the Gherkin Company. Is going to give out our teams of the week from a week ago, and we always kind of give Coach Kraus the floor here because he's the expert. We know a little bit, but not like the
Far
guru that he
far
is.
from expertise, but I do like to watch a lot of games, and Coach Strock, he said, I'm going to give it to him, but he knows his basketball too. I looked for the scouting report of Torrey Strock. What year was it?
Would have been 91 was my junior year, 92 was my senior year.
Unfortunately, for some reason, of all the Liberty Center scouting reports, I go back to 84.
Don't have mine.
And those 2 years are missing. I'm gonna have to keep, I must have put them in a different place, because I want to come back and talk about your game at some point.
I would love that. I've got recollections.
You had a little game.
I've got recollections. Well,
How many
thank
did
you.
you score against PH back
It
then?
was always hard to score
Did you
against
beat us?
these guys. Never beat them.
You never beat them.
That's
No,
what I should have
I never beat them. Now, I was 4-0 in football, but we could never beat them in basketball. I will tell you that, and we wanted to, buddy.
What was your freshman year? 89?
Well, we beat them when I was a freshman. Ben Leatherman.
But you didn't play varsity.
No, I didn't. I should have probably, but I didn't. And
Is that Jeff Palmer?
no, he wasn't there yet. John Loft was there my
okay,
freshman
John,
year, and then Coach Palmer came my sophomore year, and I played JV and varsity, and then. But yeah, you couldn't beat PH. You couldn't beat them.
The house of cheat, right?
Well,
I don't know where that came from.
I don't say that these days because I've got some ties there.
That's just what I hear from some.
But there
Well,
were.
that's pretty steep from an Airsville guy right there.
So my junior year we were at PH, I believe, and my senior year my junior year we had him at home. My senior year we were at PH, and I remember Larry Smith and Steve Lee and Chris Joy. Those guys would sit down in front and just give you a hard time, But I always loved playing at PH. I loved playing at PH because that place was jam-packed. It was nice and warm. I loved it. Never had much luck, but I loved it.
Fun place to play. One
One of my favorite places to play.
Okay, well, let's get into this. Let's start with the ladies, and truly, I'm just going to mention now. There's a lot of teams we could talk about, but I'm just going to mention the ones I think deserve mentioning, and we'll go from there. Liberty Met, Division IV school, 14-3 in the season, but they've had some really close, tough losses in those 3 games against really good competition. They beat Patrick Henry last weekend in a huge game, which, Patrick Henry was their 3rd loss, and they've had a fine season to date. The thing was more impressed by, I went to the game, they're playing mostly underclassmen. I think maybe 1 senior, maybe 2 seniors get a lot of action, but they had 3 freshmen out there playing a lot. They had a junior who's committed to Toledo already, big girl, so that's a team that, and they have Ben Gherkin's daughter from Holgate, he's the high school principal there. She had a fine game. They've got a really nice team, and they could do something in D4, but I think moving forward to their new league, they're going to have some quality teams being ready to compete at the next level when they go to the NIL.
Well, they'll compete right away.
Yeah.
Right away, day
I
one.
think so. So that's the team I want to throw out there. And then we go right to the Northwest Ohio League Delta. I mean, they're just 15-2. We just had a second loss to Central Catholic just last weekend. So they've stepped it up against a little competition. Got beat for their second loss, led by a sophomore, Anna Lohman. Wow, what a player she is. He mentioned a Lohman.
That's what I was going to say, somewhere.
Might be some connection somewhere, that's for sure. And then Paulding 16-1. Their lone loss fairly early in the season to Bryan. They've won like 14 in a row. Having a really solid year in the GMC right now, leading them and Fairview are coach leading the league right now. They too are playing a lot of youngsters. Played really good defense. They forced some like 24 turnovers in their last game, so they're able to step it up on defense, and that'll carry you a long way too if you can keep that going. But so those three are the three teams that I would basically give some credence to beat. Truly, I think I think they had a really good win, and I think the fact they're playing those young kids was impressive to me, and I think that deserves a recognition.
No argument for me. Coach Schrock?
I can argue with me. Plus, Ben Gherkin's a buddy of mine, so I tip of the cap
Good
to
guy,
the
really good guy.
We
Eagles.
like
Great
that.
guy.
Well,
Yep.
let's move on to the guys. This is amazing. Delphus keeps rolling, and they've already been we have yet to make them our team of the week, but they're undefeated. They just roll. They got a couple big games this weekend. They got Versailles and Lincoln View both at home, both 11-3, one's 14-2. But they're led by that Cam Elwer. Boy, what a season. This guy is unbelievable. And we're talking about 29 points a game, 6 rebounds, 4 assists a game. Then you take it a step further, shooting 69% from two-point land, 57 from threes, and he's 93 at the foul line, 70, with 76 out of 82. He's already shot 82 foul shots. That's a lot of foul shots this time of the year. If the ball's in his hands, he knows what to do with it. He's committed to Furman. He's really a really good player. Moving down to Division 6, Lincoln View, who we just talked about. They'll be having a huge game. Well, they can go to Delphus this weekend and have a great win there. That would be unbelievable. Great upset. We've mentioned Van Buren along the way. They're 13-1, leading the BBC. Mark Bunn's done a good job. They've won 13 straight. Interesting in that division. One thing we might have to talk about one of these days before the tournament draws is how the Northwest District has restructured the tournament. It's kind of a unique way. I would recommend anybody who's interested in the draws to go to the Ohio High School Basketball or the Ohio High School Association. Click on boys and or girls tournaments, and you see it says updated tournament brackets or coded brackets. You want to click on that because they have it laid out by color, and you'll see the actual sectionals and how it's divided out. You can't explain it without seeing it in person. But I would strongly recommend that. But a couple other teams I want to get mentioned to because one is Van Wert. Again, they're pretty young yet. Jeremy Best, who you know well. And we got to give him a little credit because he just was named to the Hall of Fame at Bluffton.
I saw that. I did see that.
So we got to give Jeremy a little love on that. Well deserved. And there's
he deserving of that? You're a Bluffton guy, Coach Schrock. Is he deserving of that?
They don't come in better than Jeremy does.
He could fill it up. He was a lefty, and he originally went to St. Joe. They're defunct now, the Pumas.
That's right.
And transferred to Bluffton and lefty from Eaton, Ohio, and could fill it up and played with Dave Sheldon,
Yes,
obviously.
Yeah.
Scott Minnick, who's the principal at Wapakoneta now, but JB could fill it up. And heck of a golfer, too. Now,
I've heard.
He can hit it, but just a great guy. And kudos to him for being inducted
and
into
he's
the
got
Hall
his
of Fame.
team at 13-3 on the season. They've won 10 of their last 11. They've got a huge game with Shawnee. They're both 5-0 in the league, so that's going to be for some bragging rights there. So Good luck to them as they get to that point. Quincy down in Lima Senior, 10-1, 4-0. Just they're always going to be there. They play in the City League, which isn't a lot of competition for them, but they have stepped up their non-league. They travel all over the place and play. So I give them a lot of credit. But they've got still nine games, or more than 9. They've got another 11 games to play. And the thing about it is, Division I and II, here they'll play another week of the season, whereas their last week of the season is the tournament draw or first week of the tournaments for Division III to VII. Because of the same mentality with football, they have less teams in those divisions, so they won't start their tournament in that same week.
Okay.
They'll wait a week, so they have another week yet to play extra games. So that's it's kind of a thing out there. Only because we'll keep talking about Delphus all year. I'm gonna let them play this weekend out before we label them, but they've really had some big. If I was going to give it to them, they had a huge game against Spencerville. They went in overtime, and Elwer said that's enough of this, and he had a game, and so they decided to keep their 15. Now that's their second overtime game. So every other game they've been blowing out people. So now they've got 2 games in overtime, which again, moving forward, you've been in close games. This is a veteran crew. I wouldn't be betting against the Blue Jays come the second season for sure. So I really like the one team I forgot to mention. I like is Genoa too. Genoa's 13-0 undefeated. Done a really good job in the Northern Buckeye. So you could give it to either of the 2 undefeated teams. But you know what? There's something about bringing a program back. That's Van Buren. They haven't had success in a while, and they're 13-1. Lost their first game to OG. Now they've won 13 straight. And Mark Bunn's done a great job there. And I would suggest the Black Knights wearing the orange and black in Hancock County should be our team of the week.
I'm good with that.
I can't argue with that. I like it. Good for the Black Knights.
Because it's well deserved. They've worked at it, and they've got some good players, and who knows what they'll do as the season progresses.
Get closer to tournament time.
Girls draw next week.
Yeah.
And then the guys on the following week, and then the Division I and II the following week will draw. But I would strongly suggest go to the brackets and check them out. They're different. They're differently structured. Matter of fact, my brother and I on our other radio show that we do, we did a video today with Jay Selgo, and we had it. You can kind of see the bracket if you want to watch the YouTube of that show as it progresses.
Give us the link.
It's just it's called the Northwest Ohio Group Chat. It's on YouTube, at Friday night at 6 o'clock. It goes on YouTube.
Friday night at 6.
Yeah.
Sorry, I probably should have mentioned this.
Well, that's fine, because what we do is we put it on the radio for 2 nights, Thursday, Friday, and that's a segment you can't really understand on radio.
Yeah.
Because you need to see it,
right.
the code.
But it is
stuff.
on YouTube now.
On YouTube, it's on YouTube, and that's a fun little thing that Doug and I have been able to do.
Yeah.